First of all, I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for RS&H and your team. And then thank you to the evaluation committee for your time and effort in scoring this and being here present for these presentations. We'll start off with our safety message, which is chance takers are accident makers. I think we can all apply that to our lives. We definitely don't want to be those chance takers that are causing accidents or putting other people at risk. So just something to think about throughout our day. Also wanted to point out we have emergency exits, one on the far side of the elevators, one on the near side of the elevators, and then if we had to, you can go through that back door to the far end of the building. There's an emergency exit there as well. Restrooms, there's the men's on that side, the far side, and the women's on the near side. Let's see. So we are here for the P18004 General Planning Consultant solicitation. You guys will have 45 minutes for a presentation, and then you'll have 30 minutes for question and answers. And
intros. We'll begin with
yeah,
intros.
we'll introduce ourselves. The evaluation committee will go first, and then we'll turn it over to you guys. So my name is John Burdine. I'm a contracts and procurement specialist for the JDA. And then I think
Ivan Rodriguez, Government, Industry, and Legal Affairs Senior Manager. Wow, that's all.
Kevin Salzer, Transportation Innovation Officer.
Soraya Teeple, Transportation Development Officer.
Brad Thoburn, Vice President, Planning, Development, and Innovation.
Carl Weckerman, Senior Manager of Transit Planning.
Andy Rogers, Program Administrator, Transit.
Sharonda Rush, Controller and Finance.
Jackie Glass, Senior Manager, Contracts, Procurement, and Inventory. Just a reminder, we are videoing the presentations, and they will be available down the road on YouTube.
And I'm Tom McVeigh with RS&H.
I'm Cheryl Freeman with RS&H.
Randy Farwell with Tyndale Oliver.
Laura Mintz with WSP.
Fred Jones with Michael Baker. And Eric Blackburn, HDR.
Are you ready?
We are ready.
45 minutes.
Okay.
As Cheryl's passing out our handout, I'd like to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for having us here. Good morning. We're excited to be here to present our qualifications for the general planning contract. There we go. JTA was founded in 1955, as you all know, and at that time was providing some transformative transportation projects in the Jacksonville Expressway. So from that in the 1950s through the 1970s and 80s with the implementation of the Skyway program, JTA has been an innovative leader in developing transportation networks for our community. And also currently developing the U2C program, which will lead us into the next century as far as transportation. Throughout the life of JTA, RS&H has been here for 75 years. We have worked with JTA for most of the, I think, 41 years or so, and are proud to have worked with you on a lot of accomplishments. So I want to present our qualifications for this provide services, illustrate our resources, talk about some innovation that we can apply to your planning contract, and then we're going to put some examples in the various service categories that you asked for, and illustrates a couple ideas to help you achieve your vision. This clicker's a little bit fast this morning. First of all, I just want to state the RS&H commitment. As I said, we've been here in Jacksonville for over 70 years. We have a long-standing relationship with JTA, local headquarters, a lot of local resources. We have a comprehensive understanding of a general services role. That's what Cheryl and I do on a daily basis and have been doing for a good part of our career. We're also committed to Jacksonville. We all live here, and we're committed to helping make Jacksonville a better place to live. As with all of our contracts, we are committed to meet the DBE goals. For this contract, 25% goal. We'll meet that. Over half of our team members that we have chosen are certified DBEs, And on our current contract, for example, I looked at numbers the other day, over 30% of our contract value is committed to our DBE partners. Goodness. So key differentiators of our team, okay? Through our longstanding relationship working with JTA on a daily basis, we have an understanding of your vision. We have corporate leaders right here in Jacksonville that will serve to help promote that vision. We have national and international experience throughout our team with innovative planning, finance, and technology, as well as industry leaders in all of the service groups, notably transportation planning, capital resources, finance, TOD, and innovative transit projects. So as we put together our team, we wanted to make sure that we had the right resources in place to provide any services that you might need in all 6 of the categories, and also provide some innovative ideas. So we assembled that team that's comprised of a lot of folks that you're familiar with, a lot of people that we have established working relationships with, and also some new partners that will bring some fresh ideas to our team. Notable new partners that we have added are Renaissance Planning, who are national experts in planning and have also participated in some planning projects in Jacksonville as well. They're South Florida. And ITS Roads is a recent addition, and they bring some expertise in data management and also connected and automated vehicle technology, as well as some other new faces. I'll be the project manager on the project. I've been working in transportation industry for over 30 years. I've been working in Jacksonville since 2004. I've been with RS&H for a little over 14 years. Worked for the city of Jacksonville on Better Jacksonville Plan projects, and I've worked with JTA, worked with I think most everybody here in the room over the course of the last 6 or 7 years. And I'm currently the contract manager on our current JTA contracts. Apologize, that's a little bit older picture of me, didn't get an update, so I know I'm not getting any better looking, so I thought I'd just stick with it. But Cheryl, on the other hand, is still looking as good as ever here, but she did get a new haircut for today. So here's Cheryl. Cheryl and I have been working together a long time. Since I started with RS&H, Cheryl's been with us the whole time. So Cheryl and I work together on a daily basis, and she'll be helping out on this contract. So very good, Cheryl.
Thanks, Tom. Tom and I bring the right blend of planning, engineering, organizational skills to help you move all of your projects forward. And we've been doing that as a duo for a long time. We have demonstrated to all of you that we bring the stability and the reliability that we're going to help you get things done. That's what we do. But our team is even stronger by our partners. And one of the things that we value is those resources and those relationships that we have with our key partners, because we rely on them to help get all these things done. Randy Farwell and I have been working together for more than a decade, and a lot of that's been for JTA. His experience in transit service planning and implementation is just phenomenal, and the resources he brings with Tyndall Oliver will really support a lot of your activities. Laura Mins and I have been working together for a number of years, starting back at her days at Lynx and with their BRT program. And now that she's with WSP, it just broadens the resources we have available. And a familiar face to all of you, Fred Jones. Fred Jones and I have worked together for a long time with the evolution of your Complete Streets program here at JTA. But now with Michael Baker, he's taken his passion for Complete Streets across the nation, helping other communities implement the Complete Streets program. And although the relationship with HDR and RS&H goes back a ways, we have a new team member with Eric Clapper, and he brings a lot of this latest technology and experience with AV and a lot of other projects that you're going to hear about a little bit later in the program. What's important is that these individuals and the firms they represent are more than qualified and have a number of available resources to help you achieve in all of the key service areas that were identified in the RFP. RS&H and our team members have had a long history of delivering a wide variety of projects, as you see on this screen. But what I want to tell you is personally I've been with you at the evolution of your BRT program and throughout a number of your initiatives, understanding your priorities and getting things done. And together, Tom and I have been very excited to be part of the more recent activities with the Skyway Modernization Program. One of the areas you asked us specifically to look at or talk to you about today is the availability of our staff and our resources. Excuse me. RS&H, as I said, has been alongside of you for a number of years providing a multidiscipline team. But with our key partners who are here today, and the addition of a trusted partner with Kimley Horn, who's been working with you on your BRT program, and the other new partner that Tom referenced, the Renaissance Planning, we provide a large team of individuals that can provide a number of resources. Those key partners are strengthened by more than 20 sub-consultants that have a lot of specialized areas that we feel is important to have a deep bench for the wide variety of activities and the multiple ongoing simultaneous activities that are part of a general planning consulting contract. What I want you to notice is also more than half of those 20 firms are also minority businesses. What does this do for availability of staff? Well, RS&H brings to you more than 1,100 associates, with more than 300 of those associates right here in Jacksonville, which cover areas of architecture, engineering, planning. We have everything right here down the street. Most importantly, as availability, Tom and I are 100%, as we've been for the last number of years, committed to JTA. Collectively, our team provides a number of available resources with over 2,200 associates in Florida alone. But what I want you to see as part of these numbers is that more than 200 of our team associates specialize in technology, which we understand that technology is one of the areas that's going to help you move forward quickly and innovatively the projects that you have in front of you. And approximately 70 associates are experts in what we call animation and visualization. So Tom's going to talk a little bit more about the technology toolbox and the other resources that are available to you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Next few slides just illustrate, as Cheryl said, are some of the things we have in our technology toolbox. Visualization, and recently, over the past couple of years, development of techniques using aerial drones, unmanned aerial systems, and also incorporating that into our web-based systems. A couple examples of animations. The first on the left is moving a little bit, is one we helped develop for the JTA's U2C program. We've also developed other animations for other local agencies, JAXPORT, FDOT District 2. We now routinely use this as a tool, especially for public meetings, to show these projects to the public. Another tool that we're using, and we'll show a couple of examples of a little later in the presentation, is video production. We use this as part of the development of the visualization process to help get the message across, particularly for public information meetings. I mentioned the drones. Let me go back. Something over the past few years we've gotten into, we take very seriously. We use it on as a tool on a lot of our projects. We now have 6 certified pilots that meet FAA regulations. We've got 4 registered drones. Here's just an example of using a drone on a construction project to do an aerial inspection, and also to look at existing traffic conditions, different times of day, and so on. Another thing that's important, we were talking about this the other day, is we understand what the rules and regulations are for the flight of unmanned aircraft. And recently we just got approvals to fly in downtown Jacksonville for our YMCA project over in Riverside. But it is important that we understand and know what those rules are so we can get permission to fly. But not only can we have the drone technology, we have the ability to process the information that we obtain from that, 3D images, contour mapping, et cetera. I think this is going to be really a tool that's going to become much more useful in upcoming years. Go back again. Sorry, guys. This is a little sensitive. Web and analytics. Of course, all this we can use to help develop applications for all devices that can be sized to fit desktops, tablets, laptops, et cetera. So the important thing with all the resources and tools that we have is effective management of that. So we know that this contract will be task order based. So the important thing is when we do get a request from you, and once we get an understanding of the scope, that we assign the right team members at the right time to deliver the right scope of work for you. So with all the resources we have, we believe we have the capability to cover all of that. Where possible, where reasonable, we're going to assign local team members. As Cheryl said, we've got RS&H Loan has over 300 in Jacksonville. About 100 of those are transportation folks here. So we'll use local team members along with our other partners. We're going to work closely with you, as we always do, on all of our projects to develop the scope so we can establish a schedule and budget for the project. We're going to give you regular updates. I think we're in communication with a lot of you guys almost on a daily basis, or if not daily, certainly weekly. And what's really important to you and to us is that we deliver a quality project, so each project will have a QA/QC plan, okay, so that we can deliver a quality project every time. Now we're stuck. Here we go. So, as I said, this is what Cheryl and I do. We manage multiple tasks, general contracts. So I put together this slide. I got it from my calendar from a few weeks ago of a typical day that I might have managing multiple tasks under a general contract. So it starts out, day typically starts out checking email, phone calls to set priorities for the day, and then going through making sure that we're effectively managing all the resources that we have. The job as the program manager on a contract like this is making sure that we're keeping everybody moving in the right direction, managing multiple projects with a lot of resources both internally to RS&H and external team members, as well as working with your staff. Wanted to show a couple examples, recent projects that we're either still working on or did work on to show our ability to respond to help you meet your goals. This condition assessment, which we're actually wrapping up the final submittal, but we got a task work order request in the middle of December. We worked with your staff, with Matt and Johnny, to develop the scope. We got the task work order in right before the holidays. We got approval for the work order January 8th. We mobilized, had a kickoff meeting on the 10th, and we sent out a team to do a condition assessment, do hands-on component level inspection of all your facilities on Myrtle Avenue. Over 700 components in 9 buildings. So we did that work, the field work, in about 4 weeks, assembled all the data, put it in a data registry, submitted a draft middle of February, reviewed that with staff, fine-tuned it, and we made a submittal by the end of February. And this was important because you had a schedule you had to meet for the FTA for the Transit Asset Management Plan. So it's our understanding that everything's good to go and that you'll be able to meet that schedule. So we're glad to help you out with that. Another example, last summer, on a U2C project, we got a request for an updated visualization. We had prepared one initially in the project, but we really needed to update it and bring it up to date. And so we got the request in the summertime with the desire for this to be ready by early fall, okay? So we put together our team, and at that time, our visualization team with RS&H, they were already committed to a couple projects. So we reached out to our partners, in this case WSP, and we put together a plan to get this delivered. We got our work order request in, we got it approved fairly quickly, and then we had several brainstorming sessions. We worked really close with you guys on this to put together the right message. We put together a storyboard, the total script. We actually developed a vehicle model as part of that process of what we think the future vehicle could look like, as well as some of the concept designs. Submitted that in early October. The visualization was unveiled at the APTA conference October 8th, and I believe it was well received, and has since been presented to several groups in several presentations, I think pretty much throughout Florida, or certainly the region. We know that you're looking for innovation with this contract. We feel that's very important. It's important to us as we do our business. But we looked around. We started asking questions and tried to learn what innovation means to different people. We looked at some quotes. We found quotes from people that we see as innovation leaders. You probably do too. Steve Jobs, and this key message: innovation distinguished between a leader and a follower. Another person you might recognize as being an innovative leader, Bill Gates. He said innovation is moving at a scarily fast pace. I think we'll all agree with that. So So then we looked at further definitions, okay? So what is innovation? And what I found is innovation means different things to different people. You can look at it from a business perspective, a management perspective, innovation in your home, but there's all kinds of different ideas. But here's a couple key things that I think are relevant to what JTA would like to accomplish. Is innovation is a change that unlocks new value. Okay, in this case, new value for our community, providing better service, I think is the ultimate goal. And also that creativity is thinking up new things, so there's the creativity side, but the innovation is actually doing new things and bringing that creativity to an implementation point. So we put together this slide here to sort of put together the circle, the wheel of innovation. So innovation starts with an idea. So example that you guys have, and you have a lot of great ideas, but one we're very familiar with is the deployment of autonomous vehicles. Okay, so there's the idea. So JTA is the leader wanting to accomplish that. We've been working as part of your team, and this team here could work together on that to help put that idea into a plan to implement a program that will provide new value for Jacksonville. So, what is innovation at JTA? Touched on it a little bit. You guys have been doing innovative projects, like I said, going back to 1955. The expressway at that time was an innovative idea, a toll road that was going to improve and better connect Jacksonville. And you've continued to do that, JRTC, CNG, U2C
I think
program.
JTA is so well positioned.
So anyway, sorry, this is jumpy. So as I said, we were looking around for ideas on innovation. So we talked to several people in our staff and our team. We heard a lot of good ideas. And the more I thought about it, I said, well, this would be a great idea if we could capture some of these thoughts on video. So we put these together, and I'd like to share what some of our folks have told us about innovation. Goodness. Sorry, folks.
I think JTA is so well positioned because they have the population demographics in both of these powerful population groups that demand more. They demand to see changes in transit, and we rise to the solutions from what our population demands.
The APTA conference just notified Bercy Armstrong that we've been selected to present, and we're going to be part of their technological innovation session. So I think this is a great example of how JTA is using technology to advance their transit system.
Our coordination with the stakeholders has been very important, especially coordinating with the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. For the most part, our recommendations will need to involve mobility options that will include JTA. Many of the transit users in these outer counties need to commute between those counties and Jacksonville, so coordination with JTA is critical.
RS&H is very involved in applying technology in all facets, and that includes even finance. As the P3 consultant for DOT statewide, we've been very involved in all the applications of public-private partnerships in regards to transportation.
Getting the Skyway into this ultimate circulator is going to be important, and that the main way of doing that and bringing it to all the neighborhoods here in the downtown core area and beyond is through automation.
I think innovation for Peters and Yaffe, for us as a whole, is more of kind of a way of doing business. I think it's important to have an open mind. I think as engineers and planners, sometimes we get comfortable with the way that we do business, but our clients are changing, and I think the technology and innovation allows us to change quicker, and it's a faster paced environment, and we need to understand our clients' needs, and I think innovation allows us to do that.
Innovation for me is pulling diverse technical concepts together, diverse people, stakeholders together, and then coming up with solutions that work for everybody.
I think they demonstrated innovation throughout the time that I've had the opportunity to work with them, whether that was the financial innovation of the public-private partnership that they entered into for the compressed natural gas project, whether it's their commitment to modernize all their lighting using LED technologies, or whether it's their emerging planning focus on sustainability and the sustainability of their operations. I think that JTA is headed in the right direction.
As you can tell, innovation is something that's important to everybody. It's important to your agency, and it's a word that's being used a lot across our industry. And we hear this as we're doing all of the research on the new administration and what they want to see in innovative, transformative projects that can be delivered in a streamlined way. And we look at innovation and planning and all the tools in the technology toolbox Tom talked about with data collection and looking at more multimodal options and all of the emerging technologies. There's innovation in finance. We have many of our associates on the team who are in Washington and across the state looking at more opportunities of how do we to be more creative and innovative in our funding. How do we pull these projects together and looking at all these different avenues of funding? And then there's technology, which obviously is at the heart of everything related to innovation and advancing as many of these projects. And for the JTA, that means how do we use technology to help us put more service that's more efficient and providing more mobility options to people throughout the Jacksonville community and beyond. One of the things is our team members, they've been working on a lot of these projects that do look at how do we combine innovation, finance, and planning and technology all together. And I think what's important is we've identified some projects where we want to look at innovation with regard to all of the service categories that you had listed into the RFP. So now I'd like to invite some of our team members to come up, and they're going to talk a little bit about some of the projects and innovative activities that they've been doing in their work.
So good morning. It's good to be here. So I was asked to talk a little bit about innovation as applied to multimodal transportation planning, and looking at the list of service area categories under that heading, there's something like 30 of them. So rather than going through each of those this morning and put you all to sleep and take up all the time, I figured a better approach might be to apply our thought process on innovation and technology as applied to multimodal transportation planning. So there are 3 quick points. So one is big data and technology have combined to allow us to create a much more seamless and robust land use and multimodal transportation planning package than we've ever been able to do before. Before we've been able to kind of do them side by side. Here we've got the ability to really integrate planning and create much more and better plans. Secondly, technology applied to transit has really transformed our ability to recreate service structures and service structure concepts as well as service delivery. And this has been really important because what it's allowed us to do is create more responsive, integrated, and cost-effective services for the public and the community. And then lastly, technology applied to data analytics has allowed us to create more and better information to be used to comply with regulatory agencies, so FTA, the state, local regulations, as well as to take information and create better policies at the local level. And so I'm going to go through a couple examples of this. So just picking out examples that sort of cross-cut all those categories, and under multimodal transportation, we have complete streets. So a quick example is, you're aware of the Beach Boulevard JTA Mobility Works project we did for you through RS&H. That was a great project that pulled in innovative planning concepts and analyses to help create a really good set of projects that could be implemented to improve that corridor. And we've completed about a dozen similar multimodal corridor studies across the state in the last few years. Second one is the Accessing Transit Handbook. This is the FDOT's Bible for creating transit facilities. It's also, with the increased emphasis on complete streets, it's also been integrated to adopt all the complete streets guidelines. And this is a book that Tyndall Oliver, or handbook that Tyndall Oliver created for FDOT and has subsequently created the more recent version. So we've just finished the latest update and we're doing the training. This handbook is used throughout Florida, and it's also now being used across the country. Then lastly, I'd like to touch on a little bit about innovative service design and redesign. So some of the cool strategies and projects we've recently completed include the HART transit system redesign, which includes the Hyperlink first last mile connectivity, the NeighborLink e-hailing app, which allows me to take my phone and request a transit vehicle in Orlando, and it'll be there in however many minutes, or I can schedule that trip for up to 7 days in advance. We were asked to do an analysis of the application of TNCs to transit services for the city of Palo Alto, California. And we created the Links Mobility Manager Broker model, which they are in the process of implementing. And this includes looking at different ways to serve mobility, including brokering out trips to taxi and TNC. And what's interesting is a lot of those trips are high-cost paratransit trips. And then lastly, we are in the process of operationalizing a mobility as a service, mobility on demand concept for PalmTran. And all of these examples, I'm hoping, might give you an idea of sort of the overarching breadth and depth of expertise we're bringing to multimodal transportation planning in the application of innovation and technology.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about the innovation in finance and capital grant administration and developing the grant support. Our team at WSP, we have a deep bench of advisory services that can help provide the financial analysis that you'll need to make your business case. When it comes to funding and financing in terms of innovation, mostly it's value capture. And you can achieve that through public-private partnerships where you leverage public dollars or public assets with private resources. Also with tax increment financing, if you have a CRA here in Florida, that's another way to establish a funding stream to help support some of that capital development. Air rights at your stations, as well as ground leases, to help support the development that's going to support your transit system and your stations here, locally in your downtown, and as well as joint development where you're leveraging those private funds and resources to help advance a project through the system. In terms of some of the projects we've done, WSP and RS&H has assisted the teams in terms of the Purple Line in Maryland, where we connected a 16-mile light rail corridor through a public-private partnership. We provided project delivery services and advice to the program. We did a value for money analysis to make the business case for the private sector, as well as to allow it to move forward from a public standpoint in fiscal responsibility. Included in that process was revenue forecasting and capital and O&M estimates. Another project that I wanted to share with you, which I thought was very interesting and innovative, is congestion pricing and using it as a way to leverage your sustainability goals through a funding stream. It was in Stockholm, Sweden, through the Swedish Transport Administration, and we provided advisory services and environmental support. Our other specific tasks included demand forecasting, understanding the heating and cooling distribution, and providing project and program controls. And this was a way to leverage some of those resources, as well as providing some educational benefit to get the buy-in from the locals to basically tax themselves to provide that sustainability stream for projects that would be, and transit improvements that would be more sustainable and provide some value capture as well. So I will also turn that over to Fred.
Good morning. TOD, which is one of those terms that we throw around a whole lot. I think it's really an opportunity. Tom mentioned earlier unlocking new value, and I think that's exactly what TOD is, and it really provides an opportunity for JTA to elevate the sort of the policy and the design framework that we have in place, and as well as the U2C and the BRT program to identify what are the assets that you have here. Ultimately, I think to lay the foundation for private sector success, because ultimately that's what you want to be able to have, that you want to be able to have an attractive environment, that you've positioned yourself, your assets, so the private sector responds to it, that you ultimately create a great product. From Michael Baker's experience, we know railroad stations. We've been involved whether in the design, the construction, the management, from rehab to new stations from Harrisburg to Boston. And what that's done is it allowed us to have experience and the know-how in terms of what a station entails and how to position it for additional investment. We've worked with a lot of private sector developments to identify what are the value capture tools that can be in place and to ultimately create real meaningful places, because that's really what TOD is. I mean, it's more than an acronym, but it's really about creating place around your stations. And now that you've gone through this process of you start to develop your BRT network, you start to look at where the places that U2C can land, you have Park and Ride, you have Armsdale, you have Avenues Walk. What can those places be besides, you know, a parking lot that may serve some riders to get on the system, but how can we create place and have that be a revenue source for JTA looking into the future? A couple of examples here from a TOD standpoint. We worked with in the city of Harrisburg to help restore a historic station in downtown Harrisburg that served a number of modes to really leverage the assets around the station to position it for private sector development. So you can think about the JRTC work that's underway and how do we bring all those, the confluence of modes together, but then looking at the properties around it, how can we position those best for private development? One of the most important things that it led to was the city adopting a $150 million flood control reduction project, knowing that there was no way we could get this thing to happen without doing that first. So this was a classic example of soup to nuts work that we've had experience in, the company does in really developing meaningful transit-oriented development. Another example, which I think is quite apropos to JTA at this scale, is the East Liberty TOD project, which was in downtown Pittsburgh. This project, again, is focused in on really creating and maximizing revenue around the east-west busway and a station that bifurcated two neighborhoods. And what this ended up resulting into was we ended up actually writing the Tiger grant, successfully procuring the money, and identifying the private sector partners to develop $77 million of development around the station. So built new platforms so you can really start thinking about how the public sector, the JTA project, or the JTA resources, the Tiger grant, the federal resources, position the private sector for that level of commitment and responsibility. One of the other things that was useful and innovative here was the development of the use of TRID, which is a Transit Reinvestment District, which is kind of a tool similar to CRAs, but a value capture tool that provided that sense of security that, hey, you know, we're going to be able to leverage the money into the continued operations and maintenance of the station long term. So, I mean, I think when you think about, you know, TOD, you know, it's really about creating an environment of predictability so that the private sector can come in and say, okay, this is, you have developed a framework for us to be responsive to. You're never going to be able to predict a real estate market or capitalization rates, but you can provide a framework that makes it more comfortable for the private sector to be engaged. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric, who's going to wrap up transit service delivery.
Sure. So I'd like to talk briefly about our approach to innovation as it relates to technology. And some of these are activities that JTA is already engaged in through the test track. I'd like to highlight a couple more, though. I do think it's important to look at federal and state regulations to identify potential roadblocks, but also to look internally, things like procurement policy that might not align with technology timelines. Of course, activities like the charrette we did last year are good for building consensus around a common vision, and it's important to continue those conversations. And they can also bring about partnership opportunities, both here in Jacksonville and throughout the country. One example project that we've done that I think is a good model for Jacksonville is in Lincoln, Nebraska. This is a deployment of 4 to 6 vehicles operating in mixed traffic. It is a demand responsive system. Users access it using an app. They pay for it using an app. And as part of our support to this project, we helped them design the route. We worked with their state legislature to clear some of those roadblocks in Nebraska state law. And currently we are working to evaluate vendors and vehicles and service models, and ultimately we'll turn over our recommendations to them and they'll implement by the end of the year. When I sort of apply some of these lessons learned to things JTA might consider Of course, continuing the test track to the next phase is key. Looking to the example in Lincoln, Nebraska, I think there's potential to do a pilot project in mixed traffic, and we'd be happy to support you. And finally, looking to the example in Seattle. They partnered with Uber to provide first and last mile service at one of their rail stations, and I think that could work well here. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and thank all of you all here. When we reached out to our team, we were looking for ideas that would be applicable to what JTA is working on. It would bring some good ideas. So we think these folks brought some good ideas. I have one more. One of our newer team members also had a great project in South Florida. I'll let you hear, Chris.
For Kendall Corda, the way we approached that, we had a series of charrettes that started the project out. What we did with the charrettes was we designed the charrettes around transit. We had people actually tell us where transit station areas need to be located across the corridor. And what we found was that people came up with very consistent thoughts about where those station locations needed to be. After they came up with those station locations through the charrette process, we compared those against what the transit agency was coming up with in terms of station locations. There was a lot of consistency between the two. So being able to get to that alignment quickly was very effective. Now we're in the process of fleshing out what those station areas are going to look like, how they're going to work. We're visualizing those station areas not only for the transit agency, but for the public and to the planning community, ultimately leading to a sound set of policies that can be used by the planners in Miami-Dade to start reorienting land development in ways that will support transit. Because ultimately that's what this project is all about, is to try to figure out how you can set up regulatory framework, planning framework in a way that's going to support ridership of the transit along that particular corridor.
About that project, that's just a 1-minute clip from that, but we think that that project has some concepts that will be directly applicable to some of the things that you're doing, both with the U2C and some other programs. So innovation, as we wrap it up, we just want to kind of summarize. You guys have already done some innovative projects that we've been proud to help you with. Compressed natural gas project is, I think, your first P3 project, and one of the first of its kind in the state of Florida, and the country for that matter. Long-term, 15-year lease concession agreement that, from everything I hear, has been working very well for almost 2 years now. And also, we've been involved with the Skyway Modernization Program, now the U2C, for the past several years, which, from a national perspective, state and national perspective, is one of the more innovative projects out there that will incorporate all the concepts of innovation planning, finance, and technology for implementation of one of the first autonomous deployments in the country. So all these things feed into the vision and what you see going forward. So we've got a couple slides here. We understand your vision. We work with you guys a lot. We know that your goal is to provide universal access to, with new dynamic transportation solutions to Jacksonville and Northeast Florida. Your goals, our goals are aligned with your goals to help make you successful. Of course, providing transformative solutions to help you do that, such as the U2C. Sustainability is very important to you as an agency. It is to us also as an organization, as is our organizational efficiency, as it lines up to help provide efficient services to you. Financial stability on all the projects. A project that's not financially sound can be ultimately not a good project, so that's important to us. And so we really want to help achieve customer satisfaction. How can we help you deliver better services to our community? We're familiar with your blueprint of excellence. We have worked with you on most of the components of your plan. From the Regional Transportation Center, we have team members involved with that. That's currently underway. The transit network, the Skyway program, as I've mentioned, looking at alternate delivery methods, BRT program. Of course, we've helped out with the Mobility Works program and different aspects. And like you, RS&H is looking how we develop the workforce of tomorrow and how we incorporate and train folks to be able to work as technology advances. So that's important to us as well. So what we did is we started talking through some concepts of what we could do to help you achieve your vision. So maybe what could be a project of the future in upcoming years that might help you meet your goals. So We got this map here that shows your, in yellow, your existing bus routes, and then the colored lines are your proposed BRT systems. The north section's already in service. Southeast will be coming online pretty soon. But we see an opportunity, you know, to build off of that. I know you're talking about possibility of some mobility hubs, autonomous vehicle hubs to help with first and last mile. So what we did is we took that conference or that concept, looking at where we're at today, and well, where could we take a project that we're familiar with and help take it, you know, to the future, if you will. So we started with a project that we worked on. We helped develop some design. We provided design services and also developed some graphics for display at a public meeting. The Avenues Walk Park and Ride Station down near Avenues Mall. So this is the proposed plan that's under construction right now. I believe it's planned to be open next year, or later this year, I'm sorry. It will include a commuter parking, bus stops, as well as a full-service customer center here that will have restrooms, a ticket counter, and so on. Currently a park and ride, but what we see going forward is maybe transitioning this into what you might call a multimodal center. Instead of just a park and ride, as the commuter rail develops, this site we know has been designed to accommodate future rail. So as you see in the upper right, our team put together a graphic to illustrate what that station could look like.
2 minutes.
And maybe you have an outdoor station that looks something like this. We could incorporate solar panels into the roof, provide power. So in addition to that, we show an area where we could park, maybe in the short term, serve as Uber or ultimately autonomous vehicles to provide first and last mile connections. These could be charging stations. Then the customers could get off the train and hop right on a ride to take them home. Also adding bike share. You know, we see that as something that could probably be added, you know, pretty near future. So ultimately, you know, as this develops and the mobility hub develops, we think this will present an opportunity for possibly a transit-oriented development around this whole station area. This could be some kind of mixed-use development that maybe we could leverage to generate some revenue to support the transit in the area. So this is, you know, one idea that we put together, that our visualization team worked on this. Tim kept asking me for more time because he wanted to add some movement to this and so on. But let's illustrate some of the tools that we have that can help illustrate what your vision might be. So with that, you know, our team is here to partner with you. We've been working with you guys. You know, we want to work with you to help provide the innovative solutions for our community so that we can help enhance quality of life and the vitality of our region. So we thank you for your time. Ooh. Oh, it won't play.
Those people said, let's roll.
Yeah, play through. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, so
we've got 30 minutes and we can open it up to questions.
let's start.
Ready to go on the Q&A?
Hang on.
There we go.
All right, we're ready.
I appreciate the presentation and you're interested in serving as the VPC for JTA. I'll kick off with some questions and then hand it off to the rest of the panel. First thing I wanted to ask about is, you know, your strategy in terms of managing the team. You've got a pretty extensive group, and how do you envision working with JTA to align your resources with our needs on various projects?
Sure, I'll start it. We touched a little bit upon that. And as I mentioned, this is what Cheryl and I do on a daily basis and have been for the last several years. Program management, managing, multiple services under one contract is something that I've been doing for probably over half of my career, working on multiple projects, multiple tasks. So I'm familiar with, how we manage a large team. We're doing that now. We have, 20 partners plus on our current contract. We have a whole variety of task orders that we showed you that are really broad-ranging in scope, broad in nature, so that, we understand what's important to you, which we work with you to establish the priorities so we can assign the right team members. We have established relationships with a lot of our partners, the folks that you see here, all these folks here we work with. Some I know we're talking to almost daily, outside of this presentation, of course, also. So we're familiar with that. It's something we do. We've been doing for quite a long time. Cheryl, if you'd like to add.
And I think the accessibility, a lot of these are, a lot of our partners are local resources, and they're just right there. And we've added all the innovative ways that we communicate with the Zoom and the webinars and web access, that we are in constant communication and having our weekly updates and so on and so forth. But I think we have to remember that we show that deep bench, we show all the resources, because a contract of this kind, we just never know, and you are moving so many activities forward that we want to make sure that we have access to a lot of resources. And I think we strategize, Tom and I meet every day, we strategize on who we can pull in. As soon as I get the call from Soraya or someone else and say, hey, we have this work order, and we think, okay, who do we have? And we really do have a good method of our partnership and working together and strategizing on how we bring the resources. And don't let the schedule that Tom showed you fool you, because all of you know that we're almost 24/7. And that's okay, because that's the environment we live in. And a lot of times we have to spend the extra time just thinking so that you're ready for that next deliverable to FTA or that next presentation to your CEO. So I think we always find a way to get it done.
Just for example, Cheryl this morning, right before we started, got a request for us to generate some printouts for my close of business today, and Cheryl already jumped on that with an email. I think we've got that in progress. So
absolutely.
That's great. At JTA over the last several years, we've really done a lot to sort of change the culture of the organization. Can you just give us, your understanding of sort of the JTA way and how you would describe it?
JTA way, from where it is, JTA wants to be a leader in the transportation industry and wants to be an innovative leader and come up with new ways to provide better service while we do it more effectively and more economically. So, for example, using technology to provide better service instead of a lot of new infrastructure to keep the cost of service down so you can provide better service. That's what I see as a key goal. I've seen over the past few years that I've been working here, I've seen you guys do a lot of changes to improve efficiencies in just the way we process work orders. We've become more efficient, consistent with the way we do that, and the turnaround time on those has really been reduced. So we see you guys doing a lot of things internally to become more streamlined, as we try to as well.
And I've been around the JTA for multiple organizational changes. And I think the one thing is, as you've evolved, we've tried to evolve our team. We bring additional resources in as you need us to bring resources in. And we've watched how the culture has advanced. And I think one of the messages we are hearing a lot today is we're not just working here in Jacksonville, but we're trying to take your projects and your messages. Tom's participated in over half a dozen professional society presentations about JTA projects. And we know we prepare you to do the same thing, writing articles, getting more information out to the web base. I think the culture is that you're trying to show more innovation and take your message beyond our community.
Great, thanks. I've got some other questions, but I want to make sure the rest of the panel gets to ask some questions too. So,
I got one, but it's a hard one. I guess that you inspired me with your presentation to ask this question. And going back to your Bill Gates quote, working at a scarily fast pace, so understand this is couch. How do we do a P3 project for AV and mixed traffic with solar en route charging by the end or within a year?
No challenges.
I mean, that's a real
challenges too great for this team. Go ahead.
Okay. I guess the that's something that the CEO could come to us one
Yes.
day and say, I
Absolutely.
want to do this.
That's right.
We reach out to you. How do you respond?
Okay, so actually, we've had these conversations as part of the UTC development, and I'll go back to a year ago where we had an industry forum, and what we did is we reached out to industry, both the folks that are doing automated vehicles and folks, the financial people, the contractors that could help deliver a program like this. Okay, so and what we heard at that meeting was, okay, from these folks, and this was from industry, that putting an autonomous vehicle in mixed traffic in the near future could have some challenges, okay? Because there's.
But we heard Lincoln. I guess I'd like to hear from some of your other team members. We heard Lincoln can do it.
Yeah.
How can we do that?
And there's some challenges. Maybe I'll let Derek talk about.
So Lincoln's an example of a place where we are doing that within a year. And I can't speak as well to the financing component, but basically we looked at it both from an infrastructure side and a vehicle side. And on the infrastructure side, we determined, and they're fairly light upgrades that they had to make to signals, signage, things like that, for the vehicles to be able to place themselves. So we turned that over to them fairly quickly. Then on the vehicle side, we looked at a range of different operating models, anywhere from the city buying and running the vehicles themselves, all the way up to contracting through a vendor who would operate, maintain, build the app, basically develop a turnkey system. And we've been in talks with vendors as part of that project, and they've all basically expressed comfort that by the end of the year that they could have something operating in mixed traffic.
I guess that's Laura. How would you see the
So from the
financial?
financing side, and when we talked about the P3, I think in the room, RS&H obviously is one of the leaders in the state in terms of advancing transportation projects on a P3 basis. And then what WSP brings is a group that can do the transportation side of it and make that business case. I think it's public-private partnership. So if you want to do it in a year, it's a partnership. It's a partnership with the vendor and the operator, as well as JTA and the city of Jacksonville. And where you find the availability payments, either through development rights, infrastructure, leveraging some of the funds and assets that you have and that the vendors would have to make it develop that business case. And we have the people and the team that can do that for you.
Let me back with that question because actually it was good. And go back to Nebraska. During the presentation, what?
It was a good question.
It was. You mentioned about working with the state legislature and also local component for changing policies. We've heard over and over again during the industry and everywhere we go that Ford is one of the leading, but the most liberal. What exactly, and I know, I mean, there's probably a level of detail you can't get in because they're your clients as well, but at least on the terms, the holistic view, what were the needed change in the state and the local level for that to happen, and what was your help or support for it to change that in the legislature? Did you actually advocate? Did you just provide the information? What?
Sure. So as it pertains to autonomous vehicles, I think it's important to remember that regulation of the vehicle itself falls to the federal government. And so there's usually very little that needs to be done to address on the vehicle side. But states are responsible for licensing drivers, and in the case of an autonomous vehicle, that gets a little tricky. And so we've seen states like California make changes to their DMV policies to enable the registration of autonomous vehicles. In the case of Nebraska, the primary changes that needed to happen were related to essentially references to driver in their state transportation regulations. And so one of my colleagues, Ben Pierce, went out to Lincoln and testified to some of their state legislators. And basically we created a list of, here are all of the state regulations that make this reference to drivers, and you're gonna have to change it to operators. And the other component was they basically created a zone in which they were exempt from certain safety regulations.
You had something you wanted to
Yeah, I just wanted to say it looks like it's really about managing risk effectively. I know the work that we've done in Pittsburgh, and I think to accelerate it, the more that you can be involved in availability, a subsidized P3 is probably going to be the best strategy to make it work effectively given a compressed time frame, because these guys, obviously managing risk is a big part of that, and to have the certain or greater certainty that you're going to launch it in a quicker amount of time, be prepared to have resources
JTA
on hand.
taking on that risk,
Yeah.
you're saying, okay.
I don't know if this is a proper question, but I need to do it. Is this a current exercise that we've done under the current contract or not? That level of going?
No, not to my knowledge.
No. So we. Do you have any
Can I
questions?
ask that you use your microphones when you do?
Oh,
this?
okay.
Yeah. It just makes it easier on the
Yeah,
recording.
no, I understand. Any questions on this side of the room?
I have a couple of questions. And the first references a slide when you mentioned number of people available. Would it be possible to go back to that slide? Because I think there were things I saw versus what I heard.
How much do we have for questions?
We have 18 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The ones that I spoke to, the numbers.
Yeah, Cheryl was the speaker during those slides. Sorry about this.
That's all right. There you go. That one or the team?
Next one.
There you go.
Okay, so here's a question, and don't necessarily take it the wrong way.
Okay.
But this is the general planning consultant ask, and
Right.
so we have 700 plus engineers available and 97 planners.
Yes.
So maybe answer if someone were to come from the position, this is an engineering firm an engineer is going for planning work, what would your response be?
I'll let you start.
Well, we are engineering firms, as are our partners, and that's part of our business, but we're also planners as well. Cheryl.
Some people
Cheryl's
think I'm a
primary
planner,
role is
but I'm really an
planner.
engineer.
We have other staff, Rob, Miguel, and others.
And everyone that's sitting here in front of you.
Everybody here
is an
they're all planners. So engineering is part of what we do as an industry, but planning is a key component of that. And our planners are the ones that help develop the projects that ultimately engineers are going to design. So we think both of those things complement each other. So we can begin with the planning and lead right through project development.
Good planning in the beginning, but the one thing about the engineering side of it is, as you evolve your name of your group or Brad's group to planning, development, and innovation requires you to look at a lot of things. It crosses a lot of disciplines, and that's why I think any of these assignments that come out, when you're looking at technology, and I think it is important to note that there aren't that many engineers, but the other part of what a lot of these assignments relate to a combination of looking at all of your disciplines together.
Yeah, and if I could just add a quick point, because I have experience from the consulting side of things and trying to work in Florida, where a lot of the projects that are planning projects are classified and put out as engineering projects. So it requires a firm that is a registered engineer to do the work, even though the people who are doing the work are planners and the work is planning. So it's an issue. So that's why we work for engineering firms, but we do planning.
Well, as a planner, I'm not an engineer. My degree is in planning, and engineers planners have the ideas, the big ideas, and look at things from the 30,000-foot level. Engineers keep our feet on the ground and help us to be better planners. So in my experience at Lynx, getting into project management and project delivery, being able to put a project into the ground and have it built from just a planning background, made me such a much better planner in terms of how I get project delivered.
Okay, so, and then I have just one other question. And it relates to, I think what I saw in the presentation that was the most classical service design type of planning work was when you mentioned Hart's system redesign. So can you give me a little bit more information about where they are in terms of implementation and the like?
Yep, so the plan was completed. It was adopted. Basically, it was a restructure of their network from essentially a hub and spoke system to more of a grid-like system. The board, upon getting some complaints from riders who did not quite understand or like the changes, did not implement some of the proposed changes. However, after doing workshops with the board, doing more outreach and working with Hart, they basically needed us to save them about $6 million annually in their O&M budgets. We made some other changes. We worked with the city and the county, and we ended up getting another $2 million added back from, I believe it was the city of Tampa, to add more service back as we had recommended it. Because once they understood the changes better, they actually liked it, put more money into it. And the network went from more hub and spoke to more grid, and then we created these series of hyperlink, essentially first mile, last mile connections throughout the network.
Okay, thank you.
I have one. You talked about financial analysis and innovation. Tying that to sustainability, in terms of energy finance type projects, Florida is a lot more restrictive than a lot of states, power purchase agreements, things of that nature. Has your team worked on any major energy projects like that in the state of Florida?
I don't know personally. I do know that we have power is one of our sectors that we're involved in. I personally have not worked on any of those projects, but yeah, we are, that's definitely one of our focus. We see that as the innovation in terms of delivery of resources. So, and I'm sure our team is aware of what's going on in Florida as well from sustainability.
We have a sustainability group with Ben Moore, and Ben has been looking at the different opportunities that we have, that we are looking at opportunities with that. We understand how that works, and we are continuing to look for opportunities in that area.
I have one question. You answered most of the questions that I had about the workload and the team and how you all would work with us. One question about the innovation and us moving quickly. Can you speak to any of the challenges that you've seen from a procurement and accounting standpoint as far as timing to make sure that all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed? So if you can just kind of speak to that.
I can start with that. You know, I mentioned earlier that, you know, when I answered Brad's question, that we've seen a lot of improvement in efficiencies in how we process the business side of it, you know, really both on our side and on your side. The work order process, we do see, I'll be honest, we do see some differences in how long it takes to get things approved. Some we get pretty quick turnaround on, but other times it takes a little longer. We understand that there's, you know, you have to find the funding, et cetera, and all that. We understand, but what we see is the overall trend is that it's happening quicker. Overall, the turnaround is getting pretty good. You know, I know we've had them turn around in 2 days. You know, from the time we submit till the time we get full authorization, including the purchase order number. Okay, so that's you know, that's been great. You know, another thing just comes to mind, just as far as the procurement process, because we work with you on procurement. You know, we help you with some procurements, and then we work on this side of it. Is how you've been innovative in improving the whole procurement process. I mean, your website that you've developed over the last couple of years is great. It's easy to find information and download things. So I think that's been a great improvement. One thing we'd like to see, I think we talked a little about this, maybe going to electronic submittals of proposals, that might be helpful. On the financial side, and on the business side, as far as invoicing and everything, we think you guys have a great system with your accounts payable and the processing of that. We think that the improvements that have been made there over the past years have been great. That's a process that we understand. Everybody seems to be able to work with it. So I think those are all good things. So.
Tom, if I can add real quick, just from procurement of technology standpoint, I've been on the side of where I'm working with the technologists to develop the applications that are being procured. And it's a really completely different mindset. So in the past, you go through the FTA required guidance and they want systems engineering. And so what happens though today in technology, it's very much not systems engineering focused. It's more concepts and refining those concepts, testing and refining those concepts until you end up getting a product that works. Or cutting your losses and saying this is not going to work. And so that's really hard to do from a public agency perspective, procurement perspective. And so what we've had to do is sort of learn to blend those two together by going through the systems engineering process to identify the system concept, do the operational concept, the functional requirements, and the performance requirements, and then putting those together in a document that you can put out as a procurement specification, not necessarily specification, but a procurement solicitation that describes what it is you're trying to achieve through this procurement, and that those documents, the functional requirements and the system concepts are used to then create traceability back to what's being designed and to confirm that yes or no, we are getting what we asked for. And so it helps the technology side, the technologists, understand what it is you want and what they have to achieve to accomplish that. And it helps you on the other side to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for.
There was a quote, when the person from Peters and Yaffe, I hopefully I pronounced it correctly, was mentioning during the video that planners and engineers, and I'm paraphrasing, sometimes you got to get them out of their comfort zone. So first, let me relay this question to you all internally, and then how it relates to us. But what are you making sure that your employees, the teams are going to be, including sub-consultants and your consultants, what are the practices that you're establishing internally to make sure that you're outside of your comfort zone and you're not just providing us over and over again? And after you do that exercise internally in between your teams, how do you relate that to us? You just gave an excellent example of something that we could have put in front of the federal government in the recent comments that we needed to submit, but we didn't get that. So how are you making sure that that gets relayed to us, and what ways can we do to hold you accountable to such, benchmarks that we are accomplishing?
That's a good question. And, one of the terms that we hear over and over right now is this notion of disruptive technology, and I think autonomous vehicles is the example of that as we move into the future. So it is causing us to change the way we think and the way we do things. There's no question about that. I think as an industry, as an engineer who's been doing this for a long time, our constant process, we're always innovating and changing the way that we do things. It's just part of what we do. It's the nature of what we do. I mean, I think we can go back almost on a year-to-year basis and see improvements just in our processes and how we're able to more quickly turn things around and using the technology toolboxes that we have that we're developing. So we're constantly challenging ourselves. It's a competitive business. We know we have a lot of other competitive folks out there, so we have to stay on top of the technology. As far as the the autonomous vehicles, I just talked about this real quick. Over the past couple of years actually, we've identified a group within our company that is focused on those developing technologies, as have most of our partners here. So we're testing the limits there. We're like you. We're trying to figure out what our role is going to be as these technologies emerge and become more. So we're always looking at that. I think it's just something that's built into the process.
Right, and I think one of the things I wanted to add was that part about the internal working groups, because and I can add to some of the things that I know WSP has, but just like you do we do monthly project reviews where we go over all of the projects and a lot of different, but it focuses on lessons learned and the tools that we're using so that everybody is aware of what's available. All that technology toolbox, we get presentations from our folks on, okay guys, now we have these unmanned things. We're constantly getting updates internally about the tools that are available to us. And then when we reach out to our team, again, they have their own internal tools. And for instance, when it came to looking at some of the policy of where we're going in AV, we quickly went to WSP. They've got folks, and Kimley Horn, where they have folks that are working in Washington that are helping write a lot of the guidance and looking at the research and the policy. So we stay up to date with our team members on, we know where they have resources and try to tap into them as quickly as we can. It just depends on the time frame and all that, but we do have access to a lot of resources.
Yeah.
Do you want to add to your
Just from
PAN?
the WSP is we have what we call PANs, which are practice area networks, and so we can distribute them to, we have like 40,000 employees, and I can post something on a PAN like, hey, my client's asking me this question, does anybody, and I'll get responses from Adelaide and UK and all in Montreal and Quebec and so there's just a lot of sharing of information virtually, because the technology has made it so that we can pretty much be anywhere at any time that we need to be. We can also tap into those resources of those folks that are researchers or advisory or just experts in their field, and they provide us so much benefit that way.
And so I think you, Cheryl, you both are really touching on a question I have. So.
Okay.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the rationale as program managers for how, you've got this big org chart, and that slide has a lot of people. So
yeah,
and really, I mean, some of these skill sets, you put them in these boxes, and there's probably a lot of overlap. So talk to us about how the rationale for how you're going to decide what team members will work on what tasks as they come up.
And we're right about just over 2 minutes left.
talk fast. I know it's a big team, but you're doing a lot of big things, right? So, and we want to make sure we have access to the resources. And, really quickly, there is a lot of overlap. The organizational chart is designed around how you asked us to respond to the RFP. And I think that what's important is that it's great that we have resources that overlap in terms of the technology, because multiple people can cover multiple different things that are going on at the same time, whether it's regional fare or it's transit delivery or whatever it is, that there are multiple resources. And just as we did with the visualization, we knew this was a quick thing. We would, we looked internal, we couldn't do it, we went to our resource, and everything happened, happened on schedule the way that it needed to happen. You want to cap that off?
One of the keys in the org chart is we've assigned a task leader for each of the service areas, but even more so within that, as we get individual assignments, we will assign a task leader to help deliver that project. And if it's from one of our partners, we're going to ask, if they reach out to Fred or Laura, we want to know who that task leader is, and that's going to be our point of contact, and they're responsible for supporting the efforts of their team. So we try to streamline that as much as possible within our team. Each assignment we get, we'll have a task leader. And some of those things Cheryl and I will manage directly, of course, but then there are other things that we will hand over for day-to-day, just with the individuals involved. And that's what we do. We're used to doing that. So hope that answers your question. Anybody?
Anything else?
40 seconds.
Yeah, just a quick question. You mentioned a lot of TOD projects. Do you ever have any experience in actually going beyond just developing TOD plans? But I noticed that like the the TRID sounds like it's a specific, Pennsylvania thing. Where have you gone in and changed the local codes to support TOD.
Yeah, that's exactly, and the two examples that I showed were shown just for that, to show that they were more than just a concept plan, because a lot of people say, hey, we do TOD, and I think I know what that is, but we actually worked with the developer and identified, property around the station. Yes, the case of the TRID, that's a Pennsylvania legislatively mandated component tool. We have other value capture examples here in Florida we can use, but yes, we've worked with them. Those two projects, soup to nuts, construction management, actually have worked with the developer to even finish out the 4 stories of residential. So it's there, not just a concept.
All right, we could go for a long time. It looks like we've run out of time now. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.